Hello, my friends. So we're going to pick up where we left off in Rachel's video, where Emily provides a plethora of texts that give context to her relationship with Amber. And of course, it turned out to be far more alarming than any of us expected. Now, unfortunately, Rachel's video got age restricted. And that sucks, man, because a 2.5-hour video and as much editing as she did and organizing the texts and stuff, this took a long time and a lot of work. Now, the good news is, it was already well over 100,000 views by the time they flipped the switch. And it is still climbing. It's like at 170,000 views, which is really saying something for a video that's been age restricted, because that really limits its reach quite a bit. So I think it's a testament to how good this video is and how much work Rachel put into it. It's unfortunate that she's probably not going to see any revenue for it, but you know, it's YouTube. What are you going to do? But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the rest of the video. If you'd like to like and subscribe, that would literally be hectic. I'm not gonna lie. So where we left off, Amber was talking about the Casey incident and getting really angry at Emily for believing the story that Casey was telling. Because Emily had told Amber, I'm watching Mr. Snowflake's new video and Casey described how you grabbed their arm with your nails was literally the exact same way you grabbed me. So Emily is just saying, basically, Casey's telling this story, and I just experienced the same thing. And of course, Amber starts in on the whole, I can't believe you're believing him and all that stuff. And I'm not going to get into the Casey story because at the end of the day, it's always going to be he said, she said. But we do know that Amber is known for lying, known for blaming everything on everybody else, and is becoming very well known for twisting stories to make it sound like she's the victim when she was the aggressor. And then we have Casey, who, as far as we know, we don't really have any reason not to believe. While it is he said, she said, Amberlynn is far less credible. So I think we all know what actually happened between them. But Amber goes on and on and on about how could you believe him and this is what actually happened and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to point this out because at this point, Amber says, what did Rachel say? And she's not talking about this Rachel. And I had a lot of people asking, who is Megan? Who is Rachel? That kind of thing. So I'm going to show you exactly who Megan and Rachel are. Okay, so a while back, I don't know how many years ago, but Emily and Megan were together. And Megan is the ex-girlfriend that pulled on Emily. And there's a police report. It's not alleged. It actually happened. And I guess held Emily in like a basement or something for a while. And it was a big deal. Like I said, the police were involved. So that's Megan. Megan is Emily's ex. And then after that, Megan went to be with Rachel. And Emily went to be with Amberlynn. Okay? And as far as we know, Megan and Rachel are still together. Or at least they were at this time. And of course, Emily and Amber, we don't know for sure if they're still together, but you know, maybe. And then Rachel contacted Jordy at one point to tell Jordy how horrible Emily is and kind of defending Megan because they had found the police report and Rachel had been talking to Jordy, and in the texts that she sent, she said, it's the camel that broke the straw's back, which is obviously not the way it goes. And I don't know if she was just being silly or if she just said it wrong or what. But that became sort of a meme for a little bit. And so here where Amber says, what did Rachel say? This is the camel that broke the straw's back. I'm literally so hurt. So that's where this comes from. So that way, you know, when Amber talks about Rachel and Megan, and she will again here in a minute, that's who we're talking about. Now, I do want to point out, though, that Amber is going on and on and on about how hurt she is because Emily is watching Mr. Snowflake and believing what Casey's saying, okay? So let's put this in perspective. Emily just said, you grabbed my arm. Casey said that the same thing happened to him. And instead of Amber trying to make sense of that or say, I'm sorry or whatever, she plays the victim by saying, I can't believe you're watching him. I can't believe you're believing him. And of course, right here, she says, I'm sitting here crying, feeling remorseful, and thinking of all of our good memories and ways to improve our relationship while you're sitting there in your truck watching my abuser tell lies about me. Again, this is just after Amber had been physical and laid hands on Emily. And I'm going to say this once here at the beginning of the video, because if not, I will probably say it over and over and over again. But yeah, I tried to only say it once, but I kind of failed. Just keep in the back of your mind that even after all of this, Emily stayed with Amber. Even when they were long distance and there wasn't like a physical threat of trying to leave, she stayed with Amber. So, I mean, whatever. But it is just wild how Amber can turn a situation where she is the aggressor and does something bad and immediately turn it into, you are hurting me because you were watching something and listening to what somebody said. Like, who cares about the arm grabbing? That's not important. I am hurt by you for watching a thing. But I will give Emily credit here because Amber goes on and on about how hurt she is that Emily is doing this and saying, I'm contacting my mom and packing my bags. The 7th time she's said that, I'm sure. And she just keeps threatening that. I'm such a fool to trust you and to think you actually loved me. And again, she sounds like a 12-year-old. This is a junior high kid who is trying their damnedest to keep their relationship going and trying to make their partner feel bad enough to stay. But after all this, after all the gaslighting, after all the childish sympathy baiting, basically, Emily says, nice try at a reverse Uno, Amberlynn. I mean, if Emily had not stayed with Amber, I might actually have gotten some respect for her at this point when she said that, you know? But it really doesn't mean anything because in the end they stayed together. But I am glad that she sees through it, at least at this point. And then Amber continues to gaslight by saying, oh no, this isn't me reversing anything. You're sitting in your truck watching a reaction channel that has ruined both of our lives, trying to minimize what she did to Emily by making it seem like Emily watching a reaction channel is the worst thing. Like, I cannot believe you're doing this to me. And then here she has the audacity to say, you're watching him deny everything he did to me as I sit here and beg for your forgiveness. Now, I read through these texts and I don't see anywhere where she asks for forgiveness for anything. Oh, she does say, I'm feeling remorseful, but doesn't say for what. And then after saying, I'm begging for your forgiveness, when Emily says, you literally grabbed me and dug your nails into me last night, Amber denies it. So what is she begging for forgiveness for exactly? All she's doing is complaining, sympathy baiting, and gaslighting. That's all she's done this whole thread. And then here Amber says, you told me I scratched you, and now I grabbed you with my nails. What nails, Emily? When you grab somebody, if you grab them hard enough, you don't need long nails to leave nail marks in somebody. But as usual, Rachel makes a really good point here.
So Amber says that Emily said, you told me I scratched you, now I grabbed you with my nails. If we go back to right near the top of this conversation, Emily doesn't call it scratching. She says, it's pushing me and squeezing my arm. And then a little bit later, she says, you grabbed me. Again, in black number 12, you fucking grabbed your arm and dug your nails into me. It's the same thing Emily has said the whole way through. She's never called it a scratch. She's characterized it as grabbing and digging the nails in.
Amber trying to put words in Emily's mouth. You said I scratched you. I didn't see anywhere that Emily said scratch. And that's kind of the point I think that Rachel's trying to make is Amber's trying to make it something it's not. And that's another form of gaslighting, trying to make Emily second guess what she's saying. Rachel makes another really good point, and that is Emily has told the same story. Now, first of all, she's not over explaining or anything. She gets right to the point. You grabbed me and dug your nails into me. And she just tells the same story over and over again and never changes. And generally speaking, if somebody is telling the same story consistently, then you can probably believe them.
But here we say, Amber, again, which I read this as Amber trying to gaslight Emily and tell her what she said when she didn't say it. You told me I scratched you, and now I grabbed you with my nails, ? No. Emily has characterized it as grabbing with nails from the beginning. Exactly the same the whole way through, because people who are telling the truth are consistent. The story doesn't change because the story is the story.
But Amber keeps coming up with all these different explanations for everything and all these different denials. and trying to put words in Emily's mouth. So it's pretty obvious who's telling the truth here. And then we go into more really immature, pity baiting language here where it says, thank you for clarifying why I need to leave. I'm calling my mom, and this time I'm serious. Like, okay. Now we know Amber will not leave unless she is forced to leave. So she is bluffing. Every time she says, I'm going to call my mom, I'm going to leave, I can't do this anymore, it's a bluff. Amber will not leave unless Emily makes her leave. And I think Emily knows that Amber is so desperate to stay and to stay with Emily that every time she threatens to call her mom, it's a bluff. And that's why she doesn't really respond very much, because she's like, whatever, which is smart. I will give it to Emily. She is handling Amber exactly the way she should in these texts by just not responding or just letting her just, word vomit as she goes. And it ended up working out really well. Even though they stayed together far longer than they should have, it worked out because now that we see all this, it makes Amber look far worse. It gives you a better picture of who Amber is because Emily just let her talk. And that's what happens with Amber. If you let her talk, she will show you who she is. And here again, she says, I'm so hurt by you. And keep in mind that Amber was the aggressor, as far as we can tell, but the smallest slight against Amber is far worse than anything she could do to anybody else. Like, yeah, I allegedly body slammed you, but you're watching stuff about me. And we know Amber watches stuff about her, but she's just mad that Emily might be believing it. And to Amber, that is the worst thing you can do. And it turns out that later, Amber, when she goes on her lives to try to blame everything on Emily, this kind of thing made Amber feel justified in being the aggressor. And even here it says, I literally am sickened. Like, at this moment, there is one person that has the right to be sickened, and that's the person who was grabbed and maybe body slammed. But Amber feels entitled to be sickened because Emily watched something about her and is saying, hey, this thing that Casey's saying, I experienced the same thing. And Amber's like, oh, no, you didn't. And then this is such a low blow from Amber. And we're not surprised because she would bring up Colleen. We've seen that before. In part 1, we saw where Amber brought up Colleen, not Emily. Amber kept saying that Emily would use Colleen as a weapon.
I made it very clear that I'm very understanding of the whole Colleen situation. But when you would compare me to Colleen in fights, you began to turn that into a weapon. You turned Colleen, this beautiful, caring, kind woman, into a weapon to hurt your current fucking girlfriend.
But in the text we saw, unless there's something missing, Amber was the one bringing up Colleen.
Amber says, go find another Colleen. Emily says, I never will. Who brought up Colleen in this conversation? Amber.
And it's clear that Amber was really jealous and wanted to be Emily's new Colleen. And that was just never going to happen. And it ate Amber alive, And then Amber says, am I supposed to believe Megan and Rachel? Am I? Basically comparing believing Emily's exes and whatever they're saying about her to what Emily's saying about Casey, okay? So we know that Megan, at least in one instance, was an aggressor. There was a police report, there was a thing pulled, it was a big ordeal. Megan and Rachel have said a lot of things about Emily. We don't know how much of it's true or whatever. But Amber is trying to basically say, oh yeah, well, if you're going to believe Casey, then I'm going to believe your exes. These two situations are very different because Emily is saying, I experienced this thing that you just did. Casey described experiencing the exact same thing. I can see that these two things are similar. I see a pattern. And Amber is like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to believe your exes just to get back at you, basically. And completely disregarding the fact that Emily is saying she experienced what Amber is claiming is a lie. And Amber says, I never believed them, talking about Megan and Rachel. And she says, how would you feel if I said I believed Rachel because you make me feel insane? And all Emily is saying is, hey, I saw where Casey said you grabbed him just like you grabbed me. And Amber is like, you make me feel insane. The level of Darvo on display here is staggering. Because remember, all of this, according to Amber, happened, but not the way Emily thinks. You know, Amber was just trying to calm her down by grabbing her. And then whenever she got body slammed, it was just Amber tripped. There was always an excuse, always some convenient explanation for all the things that Emily said happened. And also Amber just said, you probably just dreamed it. None of it really happened. You're just dreaming it because you had that nightmare. So none of this is real. And then she says, you make me feel insane. And what makes her feel insane? Forcing her to take accountability makes Amberlynn feel insane. But again, Rachel makes a good point that after saying, I never believed them, and sort of threatening to believe them, Rachel points out that in the Emily Crash Out live streams, Amber basically was following through with that threat and saying, I'm going to side with Megan.
I have never experienced someone like you in my life. And in this moment, I wish more than anything I could talk to your ex, Megan. Megan, if you are watching this or if someone knows Megan, have her talk to me. I would do anything just to speak to you personally. I will never share anything, but I need someone who understands because this is fucking crazy.
So think about that. She's saying, hey, person that held Emily at point, I'd love to talk to you. Let's compare stories. Let's gang up on Emily. Because she knows Megan hates Emily and will say whatever it takes to make Emily look bad. So she thinks I can get an ally in this. Because Amber will do anything to play the victim, to make the actual victim look like the offender and the aggressor. But it is just wild to me that at the end of the day, all of this, all of her responses, you make me feel insane. I've never experienced anyone like you before. I want to talk to your ex. All of these crash outs that she's having are seemingly simply in response to Emily saying, you laid hands on me. And Amber's just like, accountability? Fuck that. No way. I'm not going to do that. So we're going to have it out rather than her just say, I shouldn't have laid hands on you. You know, all of this could have been avoided by Amber just saying, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't have laid hands on you. I'm sorry. Problem solved. Now, there is one kind of concerning moment here where it looks like maybe there's a page missing. And so this is where we have to say, we know Emily is showing us one side to all this. Now, that side very clearly makes Amber look like the aggressor. And I don't know that there's much Emily could show or Amber could show that would absolve Amber from all of what's happening, right? Emily would have had to do something pretty awful for us to go, well, I can see why Amber would react like that. You know what I mean? But I think Emily's making a mistake by leaving things out because all it does is make us go, well, what did Emily say if there's something missing? So check this out.
Have fun watching Mr. Snowflake, the man who, is there something missing there? The man who what? I wonder if the bottom of that message is just cut off, or very curious what that says. And then
so it's possible that the next page, whatever that would have been, had something where Emily admitted something that maybe she didn't want us to know or something like that. But Emily needs to understand that we know that they both have a bad relationship. So if she had included moments or texts or things that she said that made her look bad, it would have humanized her a little bit more and made us go, yeah, that sucks that Emily did that, but it's still nothing compared to what Amber's doing. But by leaving it a mystery, by leaving stuff out, now we don't know what was left out, right? But that's the problem. By leaving it a mystery, we can speculate and say, whatever Emily left out must have been really bad, or it could have been really bad. So Emily doesn't do herself any favors by trying to make herself look perfect, because we know she's not. So if there's something missing, she needs to show it, even if it makes her look bad, because I can almost guarantee no matter how bad it makes Emily look, it will not be as bad as Amber looks in all this. And then we have this just delusion where Amber says, you know, they both have a motive, talking about Mr. Snowflake and Casey. And that does continue the conversation where it says, have fun watching Mr. Snowflake, the man who something, right? The man who whatever. So maybe there's not much missing because it picks up on the same conversation talking about Mr. Snowflake. So either they talked about Mr. Snowflake and Casey for a whole other page and Emily didn't include that, or I don't know. There's no telling what we're missing here. But I love how Amber says, they both have a motive. Again, talking about Casey and Mr. Snowflake, that motive is to make me look like a monster and you're believing it. You grabbed and body slammed her. I'm not sure how much more of a monster she needs to be convinced that you are. Aside from the fact that they stayed together. Like that, I keep wanting to defend Emily, but it's like, even after all this, they stayed together, but whatever. Still, imagine that, right? You grab and body slam someone. They say, hey, you laid hands on me. And then she's like, you're watching people that are trying to make me look like a monster. You are a monster. And she doesn't need to be convinced of that. She just experienced it. And I will say, I am more convinced now, and I said this in part 1, but I'm more convinced now that they are not together anymore, Emily and Amber. Now, if I find out that they are, am I going to be shocked? No, not really. But I think after seeing all this and the fact that Emily shared it and everything, I think Emily finally kind of saw the light. But I don't get how they stayed together for as long as they did.
Come home and we could have fixed this. Instead, you chose war. Why, Emily? Now, it's crazy that she would say you chose war when she is literally the one who will not stop. She doesn't stop messaging. She doesn't stop calling. She is insistent on trying to get Emily to speak to her.
So think about what she said about Jade, where Amber says, I'm talking about Jade, how she would ignore me until I did what she told me to do. She controlled me. Abuse isn't just physical. Basically saying that Jade ignoring her was abuse. Now, do you see any parallels here where Amber will not leave Emily alone, and the fact that Emily is not responding to Amber is choosing war? And I guarantee you that she would say that what Emily did to her in this moment is ignoring her, and that's abuse. It's controlling her because she wouldn't respond. So yeah, it is wild that Amber said you chose war when Amber is the one that grabbed and allegedly maybe body slammed Emily. And when Emily calls her out, she says you chose war because Emily won't respond and Emily won't come home and is pretty much ignoring her. To Amber, ignoring is one of the worst things you can do because she's important. And if you ignore her, then you are committing a cardinal sin, basically. And of course, Emily, when she does respond, she is right to the point. I said it multiple times that you grabbed me and dug your nails in. Now it's just a scratch. Beat around the bush all you want. You know you physically hurt me. The fact that you can't even own up to it is just great. Go ahead and call your mom. And then look at what Amber says here. She says, I was trying to fix this, but I can't be the only one to do it. Like she's saying, you're not working on this relationship as hard as I am. I'm really putting in the effort and you're not meeting me halfway. We both need to work on this relationship together if it's going to work. Now give me your arms. And this is where Amber actually says, you literally kicked me and won't admit it. Now, we don't know what happened with the kick. It could very well be that Amber maybe had a hold of her and she was trying to get away and ended up kicking her or something. Who knows? And remember, Emily has kind of admitted to having rages when she's trying to leave and Amber won't let her. Because other than that, like we mentioned in the first part, Emily tends to just run away when there's any kind of confrontation or things get a little scary or weird. She ends up running and hiding rather than raging like Amber does. Right here it says, my rage is where I try to leave and you won't let me because I have PTSD. Okay, Amberlynn, whatever makes you feel better or justify your aggressive behavior. So if Emily kicked, based on what we've found so far, it is likely because Amber wouldn't let her leave or maybe had her pinned down or holding on to her or something like that. But it also could very well be that Emily just got mad and kicked her. I don't know. But based on what we've seen, I would bet that It was a scenario where Emily is trying her best to get away from Amber and Amber wouldn't let her. But Amber will never realize that that's not okay. You don't just keep somebody when they want to leave. You can't physically keep them where you want them if they don't want to be there. So now we get into where Amber tries to convince us that Emily faked the nail marks in the picture that she showed. And we're going to get into the details here, but I just love Rachel's take on this. So let's listen to her for a second.
So first, let's watch Amber flap as she pretends to not know how to pull up a picture on a laptop screen.
I don't want a fucking slideshow because it's not showing the full picture. Why is it turning black? Why is it turning black? You guys, I'm an actual boomer at this. How do I do this? Why isn't this showing, bro? Can someone please help me?
Alas, I fear Amber may be beyond help. We, the viewer, however, are not. Let's watch Amber now get excited and cocky as she finally works out how to show this photo.
Can someone please help me? I want to show you the whole photo. I want to show you both. The real deal and then the lie deal. Open viewer? I'm scared I'm going to delete something. Bitch, I figured it out! Oh my God, suck my ass.
You'll notice that Amber does a little happy dance here when she works out that she can in fact show these photos. Not dissimilar from the happy dance that I imagine Milky Chai did when she clocked this lie. Once again, all credit to Milky Chai for clocking this initially. This is the lie.
That was a huge deal when Milky Chai figured this out. That exploded. And what an eye for detail, you know? Like her and Hello It's Heavy both are incredible at figuring things out and seeing details that I never see, you know? Good job, Milky Chai.
Live stream and the timestamp at which Milky made this fantastic realization, and oh my God, props to you, Milky, you must have the eyesight of a hawk. Let's watch Amber lay this lie out for us now. I want it to be nice and clear in everyone's mind so that when we pick it apart and prove that it's bullshit, it's extra satisfying.
I've never been more excited in my life. Sorry, I just got way too excited. So I'm going to show.
All right, real quick. That laugh is obnoxious, but I do need to show a clip from a short that Amber posted where she's trying to convince us that the bug that we saw on her, around her shirt or whatever, was a fruit fly, which I don't know, man. I just don't think it is. I think she's freaking out in that short. I don't know that it's a bed bug, right? I'm still not convinced it's a bed bug. I don't know. But I am not convinced it's a fruit fly either. I think she uses that as a convenient excuse because she keeps saying she's bringing all these fruit flies in from these fruits.
These fruit flies are no joke. So I got this thingy to plug it into the wall. Hopefully that works. I don't know if you guys just saw a gnat. Did you guys see that gnat? I don't know if you guys did, but there was a gnat crawling right in front of me. Or a fruit fly, as some people call it. So don't mind rarity up here, but if you guys remember my gnat situation and I bought this thing for them, it actually worked. We have some gnats in there, some fruit flies. It's just, it would happen whenever we would buy a bunch of fruit, we would get fruit flies.
So I'm not sure where she's getting these fruits and why they keep bringing in fruit flies, but she gets them a lot. This is like the second or third time she's had this, where somebody has seen a bug crawling on her and she's like, oh, fruit fly. She knows that's a convenient excuse. But anyway, listen to this laugh.
That's a fruit fly!
I think she's a little too excited about that. I think she is really trying to sell it. She really wants to convince everybody that it's a fruit fly, so she freaks out and acts like that. But that laugh, oh my God, that's so annoying.
I'm living.
She's 35 years old, you guys. All right, let's get back to what Rachel was saying.
Show you the first photo that she sent me. This is her arm, okay? Keep in mind she's wearing a maroon shirt. And then look at what she sends me a couple days later. Because she forgot that she took that photo and sent it to me. Oh, this is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is from a few days later. Keep that in mind. In this photo, you're gonna see these weird marks that she created herself. This is a completely different day, Cindy O. A completely different day where there's fresh marks. She faked nail marks days later.
You know, when I first saw this, I thought it was weird that she was covering this up.
That is a little supercut of Amberlynn's lie. Nice and clear, nice and straightforward for everyone to watch. That is what Amber said happened. There's also this clip, which I always think is worth watching.
Emily literally faked nail marks in a different shirt on a different day, took the picture as if it was the same fucking day.
So this is absolutely untrue. I just want to highlight one more thing. If you look at the screen right now, you can see that as Amber is telling this story and showing this alleged second photo, which she claims was sent days later, look where her finger is. Funny, her finger is covering the date and timestamp. It's almost like she knew she was lying. And, she did. She absolutely did. I'll let Rachel in the video take it from here.
Amber lies and claims that Emily faked those nail marks later, but that's not true. The date stamp on both of the two photos is the same. So Amber is absolutely, categorically lying about what happened this night and trying to make it look like Emily abused her when in fact she is the one who physically harmed Emily.
Surprise, surprise. It's not like Amber made a mistake and thought they were from 2 different days. She clearly meant to lie. She was trying to make Emily look bad in that moment. By covering up the timestamp, by covering up the date, it was intentional.
But in the screenshot that Amber shows, you see this bit of the conversation. So you've seen now, I've shown you the conversation all the way up to and including the bit that Amber flashes in her live stream. And I asked Emily to send me that bit of the conversation from her point of view. Now you'll notice that Amber claims that Emily deleted those photos later, which is true. So if we go into this next screenshot here, this is it here. I got this one later than the previous ones because Emily sent me up to and including, and I said, hang on a minute, can I have that one? And here it is. So you can see it here, and you see Emily say, I didn't fucking kick you, Amberlynn. And then at 9:15, which is the exact timestamp that Milky clocked in the video where she realizes Amber lied, Emily sends these photos. Okay, now these photos were sent at 9:15 p.m. They were sent and then they were deleted. Emily deleted them later. I'll talk about Emily deleting them in a second.
Yeah, and this is how we know that as far as what we're seeing in the messages, that there aren't messages missing, because I think this is Facebook Messenger. And if you delete something, it'll say you deleted a message like this right here. So while Emily can just leave out full pages, right? She could just not send a whole page. We do know that so far, Emily has not deleted any messages within the text threads that we're seeing, because it will say you deleted a message.
The only reason Amber would lie about that is self-preservation. The only reason she would need to self-preserve is because she did, in fact, physically harm Emily, which correlates perfectly with every single message that Emily has sent throughout this entire conversation. Now,
and that is it in a nutshell, right? Amber knows what she's done, but she doesn't want to be held accountable. She's not sorry for doing it. You know, she'll say, I feel remorseful and I'm begging for forgiveness, but she never actually says, I shouldn't have grabbed you. I shouldn't have thrown you down or whatever. I'm sorry for doing that. Once Emily says, you laid hands on me, it's immediate defensiveness from Amber saying, well, I was trying to calm you down. I was trying to help you. Or starting out with, you dreamed it. You know, it was anything to obfuscate any kind of responsibility. So she knows that she did it. And like Rachel just said, everything, all the evidence is pointing to Amber having done exactly what Emily said. And down here, Emily even says, the fact that you're denying that you laid hands on me last night, instead of apologizing, I effing can't. And that's in response to Amber saying, how can you fake something like that? Again, trying to gaslight. Trying to say, the thing that you experienced didn't happen. It's clearly got to be fake. I didn't do that. Why would Amber need to lie about when the pictures were taken or sent if she really didn't do it? Amber said, I'm on the phone with my mom and she wants me to go back to Oklahoma. And as always, Amber trying to use her mom as a figure of authority, something that gives her some credibility, right? Like, I don't really even want to go back to Oklahoma, but my mom thinks I should. That's how bad it's gotten. Even my mom says I should go back to Oklahoma. And she does that with everything, right? Anytime she wants to convince you of something, she says, oh, I even asked my mom about it. And she says XYZ. But I love Emily's response. Okay, then go back to Oklahoma. And I know I said I was only going to say it once, but I just can't get over the fact that even after all this, even after saying, then go back to Oklahoma, and Emily clearly being done, they stayed together. And Rachel goes into a lot more precise detail and really kind of suffice to say, it is very clear that Amber lied about the arm pictures. And it is very likely, given kind of the research that Rachel did and the way Amber's responding to a lot of what Emily's saying, that the arm grabbing happened and the pictures of the arm marks are real. And Amber is trying to gaslight and pretend like it didn't happen. Now, we can't know for sure that Emily didn't fake the marks, right? The pictures could be legit and the grabbing could have happened, but Emily could have still faked the marks. But it just doesn't seem like that's the case. Given all the information we have in all these texts and the way Amber's reacting to what Emily's saying and how everything lines up pretty perfectly, it seems very likely that Amber did exactly what Emily has claimed. And here Emily says, "Are you kidding me? You grabbed my arm and squeezed with your fingers digging into my arm." And then Amber responds, "Emily, I know that I didn't do that because the whole time last night, I was just trying to hold you." First of all, those two things are not mutually exclusive. You can try to hold somebody and then also grab their arm. You could do it at the same time. In fact, grabbing is a form of holding. So I'm not sure how she thinks that this is like vindicating her, right? Where she's like, "I couldn't have because I was trying to hold you." Checkmate, Emily. And then Emily says, "Amberlynn, you admitted to me that you did it and said how terrible you felt, maybe in person. Now you suddenly didn't do it." Now, I think in the moment, in person, if she feels like she's about to be in trouble, or if she feels like, her significant other's going to get mad at her and might leave her when there are no other options in the moment, I think Amber will say, "Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry." But then look at how she acts when she has time to think about it. When she doesn't think there's an immediate threat of losing the person, then she reverts to gaslighting and stuff. But her initial reaction, her knee-jerk reaction, is to panic and say, "I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that," because that's the truth. She knows she did it. She knows it was wrong. And so in that moment when she panics, she actually acts like a person should by saying, "I feel terrible. I shouldn't have done that." But once she's able to start manipulating again, she reverts right back to her old narcissistic Darvo ways. And then, of course, Amber says, "Steven said he will come get me." Now, that could be a lie, right? It could be another bluff. Amber saying, "This is serious now. I've actually got a ride. Steven said he can come get me right now. This could be the end," or 12 hours from now, because it takes 12 hours. And turns out he didn't come get her, right? So it is likely that Amber was using it as another bluff. But if it's not a bluff, Rachel makes a good point.
Now, this line, "Steven said he will come and get me," shows once again she's on the phone to her mum, and Steven, who's her mum's husband, has just said he's willing to come and get her. Now, what would make Steven agree to drive the whole way across America? Well, not the whole way across America, but a long bloody way from Oklahoma to Wisconsin, which I believe is a 12-hour drive. Something would need to happen to convince him that he needs to get in his car and drive all that way. Now, it is my opinion, and I think this is the case, that Amber fabricated this story about Emily lying about the nail marks to try and manipulate her mum and her stepdad, by extension, to come and collect her. And I think that that is why all of a sudden the story changes and she starts acting brand new and acting like she hasn't seen the nail marks before, because she is on the phone to her mum, sending her mum screenshots or reading out to her mum what Emily said.
And you know that if Amber is talking to her mom, or if Amber is telling any part of this story to anyone, the story will always be, "Look at how I'm the victim. Look at what Emily is doing to me. All I did was try to hold her, and she's sending me fake nail mark pictures. She's driving me crazy, saying that I put hands on her. I am so hurt, Mom." So yeah, if she's talking to her mom, which again, I think is a bluff. But if she is, of course she's telling the story of how she's being abused. Because remember, during the Crash Out live streams, Amber went on and on about how she felt justified in whatever she did to Emily because of the betrayal.
What makes me unhinged, Emily? What makes me unhinged? You. Your lies, your deceit, your betrayal, your cruel words, you're mean. You are mean-spirited. You're a mean person.
And the betrayal ended up being that Emily was talking to haters and watching reaction channels and looking at inappropriate pictures on Tumblr. And Amber's reaction was to be aggressive and physical with her. And she was like, yeah, of course I was. Because she was being bad. So of course, if she's talking to her mom, she's going to paint herself as the victim. But again, I reiterate, I think it was a bluff. I think she just said, Steven will come and get me, thinking that Emily would go, oh crap. If this is really going to happen, then maybe I should apologize for driving Amber crazy and we can stay together forever. Which they kind of did. A lot longer than they should have.
So we're arguing again. She ends up leaving the house again. That's what she does. And she ends up sending, oh my God, you guys are never going to believe it. She ends up sending me a picture of her arm with these nail marks that are like so like deep. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Look at how animated she is. She is really trying to convince you that this story is true because she's a really good actor, you guys. She knows how to really sell it. But just think of the audacity you have to, as this points out, just flat out lie like this and act like Emily is the crazy one for sending this picture, especially after she intentionally covered up the date, knowing she was lying, that it was not from a different day, and then to act like this, like Emily is some psycho that would do this. I mean, look at that face. That is a face that says, can you believe how crazy this person is? Not me, the other person.
That. I'm like, well, I'm literally on the phone with my mom, bawling. And I'm sending my mom these screenshots because Emily's in the car and we're like going at it in the messages. And I'm like, Mom, I think Emily just faked nail marks. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? Show me. I end up sending my mom the original from the night where I grabbed her when she was falling, the original message, the original picture in a message where Emily's wearing a short sleeve shirt and you see nothing. You see nothing. Emily literally faked nail marks in a different shirt on a different day, took the picture as if it was the same fucking day. And I showed my mom and my mom said, Amberlynn, Emily is crazy.
And again, fascinating. She said, Emily, I know I didn't do that because the whole time last night I was just trying to hold you. Once again, we're back to the I was just trying to hold you narrative. But she's also claimed she tripped over, hurt her ankle, and tried to grab Emily on the way down.
Yeah, so none of it is adding up, right? And again, Emily has told the same story the whole time. You grabbed my arm and left nail marks, and it's all been very short and sweet, right to the point. And Amber has told so many different versions of the story. I tripped and tried to grab you and pick you up. I was just trying to hold you. I was trying to calm you down. And also, it never happened. You dreamed it. And then we go back to where Emily says, Amberlynn, you admitted to me that you did it. You know, what we were talking about a minute ago, where in that moment, when it happened, Amber had this moment of clarity or lucidity where she recognizes what she did was wrong and immediately panics and says, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. And she says, and now suddenly you didn't do it. And she says, not like that, Emily, not like that. And then Emily follows up with, or body slamming me to the floor and then saying it was you tripping on the blanket. Then it was the rug, right? So every time Amber tells the story, it's different. Was it the blanket? Was it the rug? Were you tripping? Were you trying to hold her? Were you trying to calm her down? And Emily says, I thought I knew you. How did you think you knew her? You didn't know her at all. You met on the internet. First of all, the internet is full of ways to get to know Amberlynn Reid. And if you look at the internet and still decide to have Amberlynn over to your house for an extended period of time, you're an idiot. So yeah, the fact that Emily thought she knew Amber is just stupid, honestly. And Amber says, I didn't effing body slam you. I'm a 500-pound, she's rounding down, morbidly obese woman who can't even carry in groceries, Emily. She's just so weak and frail, you guys. I can't do anything for myself. But you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. And then she says, you know how strong you are, right? Because Emily apparently is into fitness and works out and stuff. And Amber says, and now all of a sudden you're weak? And I love Emily's response. It says, so if you use your momentum to swing 500 pounds at me when I'm not expecting it, it wouldn't cause me to fall because I'm stronger than you? I don't know exactly how it happened as far as positioning and stuff, but Amber was in a tizzy and trying to do whatever she could to stop Emily. So there was probably a lot of momentum there. And then Amber says, how the F do I swing 500 pounds at you when I can barely move that quickly? Let's see, how could she do that?
See, I can run, folks.
She can move pretty quickly when she wants to, and in that moment, she was just being silly. What if she was panicking that her significant other was doing something she didn't want her to do? I think she could move even quicker than that, given the right motivation. And Emily says, then how did I end up on the ground and you didn't? And Amber's response is, this can't be real. So something happened where Emily ended up on the ground and Amber didn't. That's concerning. And I love that Emily is just not backing down. Amber is used to being able to chip away at somebody until they finally give her what she wants, which is ironic considering what she said about Jade and being controlling by ignoring her. But Emily's not backing down and won't let it go. And she says, you hurt me both mentally and physically. And of course, Amber then starts saying, they're literally begging me to come home and I'm still sticking up for you. Which again, I think is a bluff. But if she is talking to her mom, she is definitely telling her a one-sided story and making her mom think that Emily is a monster. And then she says, what the F is wrong with me for sticking up for you? Again, playing the victim. Think about that. All of this started because Amber was the aggressor. And then Amber says, I'm sticking up for you. What is wrong with me for sticking up for you after I body slammed you maybe, and for sure grabbed you, and you're calling me out on it? What is wrong with me for sticking up for you? What logic is that? And I reiterate that all of this could have been avoided. This entire text thread could have been avoided if Amber just said, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have grabbed you last night. It won't happen again. That would have been it. But she just can't. She cannot bring herself to say that she was wrong or that she did anything wrong, except that moment when it happens and she panics. But yeah, once her actual personality sets in, she starts gaslighting and lying. And then after Amber says, they're begging me to come back to Oklahoma and to leave you, and I'm sticking up for you, Emily says, right, I totally believe you. And then, if you're sticking up for me, then why would they be begging you? And that's a good question, right? If Amber is saying, Emily's really not that bad or whatever, then why would they be begging her to leave? They're only going to know what you tell them. So if you're telling them that she's awful, then they would be begging you to leave. But if you're telling them that everything's fine, then they don't have a reason to beg you to leave. So it just doesn't make any sense. And then she keeps saying, Steven told me he'll come get me. And I keep saying how I love you. And there are good moments. And if she is talking to her mom, then Rachel makes a good point again.
which is why she said all of this stuff and gaslit Emily so badly, because she wanted to sell the story to her mum that she was being abused by Emily so that her mum would come and get her, because she has no one else to drive her home. She can't drive home, she can't fly, she can't rent a car to get herself home. Her only hope is her mum coming to get her, and the only way she can manipulate her mum into coming to get her is if her mum thinks that she's in physical danger.
And think about how much of a wake-up call it should have been for Amber to realize when she was in this situation that she had no options other than waiting for her mom to come get her, which, again, I think is probably a bluff. And it's not like Amber really needed to get out of there, because Amber wasn't the one in danger. But when you lay it out like that, like Rachel did, where you realize Amber doesn't have any options other than her mom. She has no friends. She has no way of driving or getting herself anywhere. She can't fly. She can't do anything on her own other than walk to the door to pick up her DoorDash or her grocery deliveries, walk to the kitchen and put that stuff up or eat it, and then sit back down. That is all she can do for herself, is feed herself and bathe herself for the most part, sometimes, every once in a while. Don't forget the corner washcloths. Anything else that needs to get done, she has to rely on someone else. She's only 35 years old. And she's relying on everybody else to do stuff for her. This is a time when she should be able to go do all kinds of stuff, especially with her income. She could go on a Disney cruise. She could go to Bora Bora like she's always talked about. But she will never experience anything because she's too lazy, she's too addicted to food, and she's too stubborn to do anything for herself, to actually make any kind of real change. So that struck me when Rachel said that. I was like, that's true, man. She can't do anything without her mom's help. And then Amber sent that screenshot right here just to prove that she's talking to her mom, I guess. Emily says, I believe you're on the phone. I don't believe you're sticking up for me. You said there are good moments. Did you tell them you got physically aggressive with me last night, and that's what led to this? And as far as we know, that is what led to this. Right? This whole conversation started because Emily was like, you got physical with me, you laid hands on me, and that's not okay. And then Amber lost it and started texting over and over and over and over again saying, we got to fix this, and then gaslighting and telling Emily that she's the problem. And she says, that's not what led to this. So I would love to know what Amber thinks led to this. And she says, it's like you're trying to build a case. Hello, pot. Have you met kettle? But man, that is something a narcissist will always do, and that's projection. And then Amber says, you're genuinely scaring me. Think about that, man. Amber lays hands on Emily. Emily says, hey, you shouldn't do that. And Amber says, you're scaring me. I don't recognize you, Amber says. And then she says, but I'm telling them the bad about me and you, but also that I love you and that I know you have PTSD. Almost like, Mom, you would not believe what Emily's putting me through. But, I mean, she has PTSD, so we gotta forgive her a little bit. Like, if only she could do these mental gymnastics in real life, maybe she'd lose some weight. And Emily, again, sticking with her story, and as Rachel says, sticking with her convictions, she says, and it was until I saw you did the exact same thing to someone else made me realize that this will happen again. Talking about Casey. So imagine how Emily felt when she's watching Mr. Snowflake and she hears Casey tell a very similar story to what she experienced. It's like an immediate recognition, like, holy shit, this is a pattern. This is something that Amber does. And I would bet money that if we talk to Jade, something similar happened there too. Now, we don't know, and Jade may never talk, but it would sure be nice to know. Because, of course, Amber makes it sound like Jade was the aggressor, but that's what's happening here. And remember, in the Crash Out live streams, when pressed, when people asked Amber what was so bad that Emily did, it was the betrayal. She could never say that Emily got physical, other than the kick that may or may not have happened. But other than that, the only thing Amber could bring up was the betrayal and the Tumblr and talking to haters, while Amber is over here actually being physical. And then Amber says, wow, you believe that, bitch? Imagine if I said that about your exes. What are you talking about? You believe, and I assume she's talking about Casey. And as Rachel pointed out, it was not real nice of Amber to call Casey a bitch, because that is clearly meant to be a gendered insult. And Amber is just, she's a piece of shit. She's like, you believe Casey? She experienced it. What are you talking about? You believe, like, why would you believe what that person said? Because it happened to her too. I mean, Emily is saying right here, you did the exact same thing to Casey as you did to me. And Amber says, you believe them? The level of delusion is concerning, honestly. But then down here it says, the bad about both of us, right? You can't even admit that you hurt me when you admitted it last night. Again, in that moment of lucidity. And you say that you believed Megan literally last night. Ugh. In the heat of the moment, Amber knew how to push Emily's buttons. If it's not Colleen, it's Megan. She will bring it up and say, I believe Megan, just to make Emily mad. And that makes it make sense when she, in her crash out, started saying, I'd love to talk to Megan. Because again, she wants that ally. So right before this, Amber says, I can't do this. And Emily responds, you can't do this because you know I'm right. And Amber, of all people, says, I feel like I'm talking to someone in a delusional state, and it scares me. How would you feel if I believed what they say about you? And all Emily wants, all Emily has ever wanted throughout this entire conversation is just for Amber to admit what she did and to say, I'm sorry for doing that. And Amber is just flipping out about Emily believing what people are saying about her and, comparing herself to Casey and watching Mr. Snowflake and stuff. And then Emily says, how is it delusional? You admitted you grabbed me last night. Today, you're denying it. She says, grabbed? Yes, I wanted to hold you. I didn't dig my nails into you. I guarantee you that Emily was walking away. Emily was trying to get away, and Amber wanted to hold her, whether Emily wanted it or not. And that's why it was so aggressive. And then after Amber says, I didn't dig my nails into you, Emily says, yes, you did. It hurt. And Amber says, I would never do that to you on purpose, Emily. Now, I don't know about you, but if I grabbed somebody hard enough that they said it hurt, I would just say, I'm sorry. Because it would have been a mistake. It would have been an accident. I have never gotten to the point in any relationship I've ever had where I felt the need to grab somebody so hard my nails would dig into their arm. So this saying, I would never do that on purpose, it doesn't matter. It happened. And what you should say is, I'm sorry. If it was an accident, it should be pretty easy to say, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. And Emily kind of agrees, says, so it was an accident that you dug your nails in? I don't understand. And that's kind of my point, right? Is no matter what you're doing, if you grab somebody hard enough that you dig your nails in and hurt them, A, you're doing it wrong. You should not grab somebody that hard unless they ask you to, right? If that's your thing, like whatever. But if it happens, you should say you're sorry. That should be a very easy thing to apologize for because it should have been an accident. Or you're doing it on purpose. Those are the only two options. And then after Amber says, we can't keep going around in circles, who is going around in circles? Only one of them is going around in circles, and that's Amber. Emily keeps saying the same thing over and over again, and Amber just is all over the place trying to explain it all away. And Emily says, you're right. It will just keep going in circles because you can't admit what you did. 100%. That is it. And Amber says, I didn't dig my nails into you. I will firmly stand by that, Emily. That's great. You can stand by that. That doesn't make it true. And I didn't slam you into the ground either. I will stand by that as well. Well, those statements are worth about as much as the paper they're printed on, and there's no paper. So I admitted that everything was effed up last night. Not I admitted that I did something effed up, right? She's not saying I admitted I did something wrong. It's everything was effed up. It's just the circumstances, Emily. Stuff just happens. But you still somehow just want to make me into this person that I'm not. And that's Amber's excuse for everything, right? That's her defense for everything. I'm not that person. And if you have evidence that I did something, well, it can't be real because I'm not that person. So it couldn't have happened. And also, Rachel pointed out that something I just kind of missed was where Amber says, I didn't dig my nails into you. Where just a minute ago it says, I would never do that to you on purpose. So again, it's just so wishy-washy and so nebulous. Amber will never admit to anything that's actually happened. It's all in the air. She doesn't want to say anything concrete about what happened because she knows she was in the wrong. And then Amber goes on to say, I don't understand why this relationship led to this, but it did. Now, it led to Amber being the aggressor, which seems to be a pattern, but it led to continuing after this. I know I keep bringing that up, but how stupid. But Amber goes on to say, Steven is coming to get me this weekend. You've officially lost me. Damn, that sucks. The very thing you feared. Imagine the narcissism and the self-centeredness you have to have that after all this, after Emily saying, you laid hands on me, and the relationship being as shitty as it is, obviously, Amber says, you've officially lost me. The very thing you feared. It's finally come true. You've lost me. You could have had all this, and you've lost it. And at this point, what Emily should be saying is good, finally. But we know that's not how it ended up. And of course, she says, and the thing I feared too, by the way, the thing you feared, but also me. I will forever cherish our happy moments. So thank you for those. Shut up. And I love Emily's response. It says, it is the weekend. So you're telling me you're going to be here for another week making my life miserable? Yes, probably. I don't plan on making your life miserable. No. Well, plan on it or no, just you being around will make somebody's life miserable, clearly. And then Amber says, I was honest with them and I told them that I don't want to lose you. I told them that I love you more than I even love myself. Shut up. You can't love anybody more than you love yourself, Amber. You can claim you hate yourself all you want, but you hate everybody else on earth that doesn't love you as much as you love yourself. And then Emily says, I don't believe a word you're saying, to be honest. Which part? Everything I'm saying is real. 1,000% real. I had a full BPD cry meltdown on the phone with my mom and Steven. So, how do you like that? It was embarrassing. It was 32 minutes long. We just hung up. And again, this is trying to sympathy bait, right? This is trying to get Emily to go, oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I'm wrong. You're right. But that's clearly not happening. Emily says, and I'm sure you said all sorts of lies about me and left the part out of you physically attacking me last night. Yeah, of course she did. Of course she left that out. And then it gets a little crazy because Amber says, the thing is, I've never lied to you, Emily. Which, again, Amber's only language is lying. And I didn't physically attack you. You're literally lying right now. But then Amber goes on and says, I didn't tell them lies. My mom even said, did you grab her? And I said, yes, I did. So then you did grab her. You're admitting it right there. I did grab her. I'm not here to look like a saint because I'm not. I'm accountable in what went wrong. Not what I did, what went wrong. All this time she's saying, I didn't grab you. And of course she's trying to sort of differentiate, I grabbed her and I dug my nails in. She's like, yeah, I grabbed, but I didn't dig my nails in. And that's what she's trying to do, is separate those two things. But again, this is this passive language where she won't take accountability. She says, I'm accountable in what went wrong.
I'm accountable in what went wrong. She hasn't been accountable. You've seen the messages. She hasn't been accountable this whole time. So now she's trying the accountability arc. She's trying everything. She really is, apart from admitting what she did and saying sorry.
And that's it, right? Like I've said a few times, all Amber had to do in all of this to avoid all of this is just to say, I shouldn't have grabbed you. I'm sorry. That would have solved the problem. But she just can't. She just physically can't. And then, of course, Emily doesn't believe her. And I love this message. It says, I don't want you sleeping in my bed. You slept all day. You can stay up all night again. And, you know, we've heard that about Amber, is that she sleeps basically all day. She just stays up all night. She sleeps until like 3 in the afternoon. And then Amber says, I said how I felt you were exaggerating. And that's when she asked. Because Emily asked, why would your mom even ask, did you grab her? You know, and so Amber says, I felt you were exaggerating. That sounds like something an abuser would say, right? They attack or they lay hands on someone. And then whenever they say, hey, you hurt me, you did this thing, they're like, you're exaggerating. It wasn't that bad.
And then again, very interesting, very powerful, and a very, very powerful rejection of Amber here, which we know she hates, she can't stand. I don't want you sleeping in my bed. You slept all day, you can stay up all night. This is just Emily physically rejecting Amber. She's rejecting her from her space, their bed, which I assume, or Emily's bed, which I assume is a place you would imagine usually of intimacy and closeness. And Emily is doubling down even further. I don't want you in my bed. Can you imagine how Amber would take that? She can't stand rejection.
That's a great point. That had to eat Amber's lunch, so to speak. She had to hate that. And of course, Amber, again, trying to get Emily to say, you know what? I feel so sorry for you. Why don't you go ahead and stay? Amber says, I said they can get me this weekend, but if I change my mind, I'll let them know. That's how pathetic I am. Because regardless of all this, I'd still stay. We know, first of all, we know you will stay no matter what happens because you are desperate. But again, trying to act like she's the victim. And then Emily responds to where Amber said that she felt like she was exaggerating. Emily says, I'm not exaggerating it. You're downplaying it. Yeah, that sounds about right. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, right? It may not be as bad as Emily's saying, but it's probably worse than Amber saying. And then, of course, Amber saying, should I leave? Like, for real? 1,000% for real? Steven kept telling me I needed to leave, but my pathetic ass doesn't want to lose you. I mean, just listen to the manipulation there. Like, I know you're horrible. I know you've done all these terrible, terrible things, but even with all that, I'm just so pathetic that I would stay with you. Will you let me stay with you? Can I please stay with you? I mean, she is pathetic, but not for the reason she's claiming. And then she goes on to this over-dramatizing stuff where she says, I think of your smile. I think of your laugh. I think of the way you look at me. I think of your hands. I think of us cuddling. Blah, 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 blah. I think of all those things, and all I want to do is stay. And you know, in Amber's mind, she's like, that'll do it. Now Emily's going to say, you know what? You're right. I love you. You said just the right words. Those were the magic words. And Emily says, why don't you leave sooner? She's done. Why they stayed together, I will never know. But at this point, she was done. And it was really tearing Amber up.
And Emily replies, why don't you leave sooner? So interesting. This is what was going on. This is the conversation that was happening before Rarity went missing.
And we're going to get to Rarity in just a little bit. But yeah, this is what was going on when Rarity went missing. And when Emily says, why don't you leave sooner? Amber says, because I want to leave right. I need to clean up the messes I've made and pack accordingly. Oh, and I love you. Every second more with you is something I desire. Rain and petals eavesdrop. It might make me insane, but I can't help how much I love you. Again, trying to make it sound like she's the crazy one for loving Emily. Like Emily is so horrible that it makes no sense that Amber would want to be with her, when Amber is the aggressor, clearly. Now, we don't know what happened before all this, right? There's no telling what Emily said or did. We know that Emily has called her Pocahontas and all kinds of stuff. So it was not great before this conversation started. But this conversation is about Amber being aggressive and being physical with Emily. That is what started this entire conversation. That's what it should be about. And Emily keeps trying to direct the conversation to the fact that she was being aggressive. And Amber just won't allow herself to actually go there. And so Amber has gone on and on about how she thinks of all the great things about Emily and wants to stay. And Emily says, you don't think of those things when you're screaming in my face for taking too much time, 50 minutes to myself. And then here it is. You're right, because I have BPD. Now think about what's happening here, okay? Amber supposedly, according to her, was diagnosed with BPD November of 2023. This is the first time Amber mentions she has BPD.
I was actually diagnosed on my 19th session with my psychologist with borderline personality disorder.
So she's claiming here that she was diagnosed with BPD back in November of 2023. Now, I don't think she's ever actually been diagnosed, but let's just play along, right? If she has, that means she has gone this whole time knowing that she has it, knowing that therapy is really the only way to deal with it, and sort of claiming that she's gone to therapy off and on, and even knowing about DBT, which is the sort of leading therapy for BPD.
So when I was first looking for a therapist, I was looking for a DBT therapist because DBT therapy is like the #1 type of therapy for people with BPD.
And it's clear she's done nothing about it. She's not actually trying. She just uses it as an excuse, which we knew that, but just think about the fact that she claims to have known for well over a year at this point that she has BPD, and instead of doing anything about it, she just acts like this. And as soon as somebody says, you were screaming in my face, she's like, yeah, because I have BPD. Well, yeah, but you've known that for a long time. Do something about it. Help yourself and help the people around you. My brain won't let me think of those things. I hate my brain. But she will never do anything about it because she gets to do whatever the fuck she wants. And when she gets called out, she can just say, it's BPD. To her, it's a get out of jail free card. And then she says, I have this illness. It has absolutely ruined me. Well, again, you've known about it, and you've known that there are treatments for it and ways to live life with it, and done nothing about it. And Emily says, you can't blame your shitty behavior on BPD. I think that's why you don't want counseling, because you know that's what they are going to tell you. That's a great point, Emily. They're going to make her take accountability. I strongly regret those moments. You're right. It's scary. And Rachel made a good point here. She said, Amber says, it's scary. The BPD, it's almost like a separate entity. She's possessed by BPD. You're making the decisions. Now, does BPD make those decisions more difficult? Sure. But again, you have known you have it all this time, or at least you have claimed to have it all this time. And you have known and claimed to know the treatments for it, and you refuse. And Emily says, yet you continue to do them, right? She says, I strongly regret those moments. Emily says, you continue to do them. Yeah. So after saying it's scary, Amber says, I want therapy so bad at the same time. What's stopping you? And this is also just proving that she didn't go to therapy. All this time she was claiming she was starting DBT and she was going to therapy. Remember this? Yeah. She was claiming she was going to therapy, but she wasn't. She never has, and she likely never will. And then this is a great line from Emily. It says, having to take accountability isn't something you're willing to do. That's why you're not getting therapy, period. Absolutely. That's what they're going to make her do. They're going to force her to take accountability in therapy, and she can't do it. I mean, you see what happens when somebody pushes her to take accountability. This happens. This text thread happens. Gaslighting happens. Excuses. And Darvo happens. And Amber says, it'll be worth it. I mean, it would be, but she'll never do it. It says, I want to take more accountability. I'm willing and ready. And she's great at talking the talk. She has lied and talked the talk for years now. It's just scary. That's all. And it is scary for her, but not for the reasons she's claiming. It's scary because she doesn't want to take accountability. Yet you can't even admit that you physically hurt me last night. Grabbing and squeezing isn't an effing accident. Start taking accountability there. And then Amber responds, Emily, from the bottom of my heart, I don't remember squeezing you. I remember grabbing you to hold you and calm you down. And then she says, how can you not? If I squeezed and hurt you, I'm sorry.
And once again, another new defense. Now, it's that she doesn't remember. It's not that she didn't squeeze Emily. It's not that it was just a scratch. It's not that she was holding her. It's not that she was grabbing her. It's that she doesn't remember. It could have happened, but she doesn't remember. Crazy.
And think about this, right? She's able to say, I'm sorry. Because here it says, if I squeezed and hurt you, I'm sorry. Because she's able to distance herself from the action by saying, if it happened, I don't remember it. Because yeah, it's much easier to say, if something happened, then yeah, I'm sorry, sure, whatever. I'm sorry for some stuff that may or may not have happened or been my fault. Yeah, I'm sorry, sure. And I love, because earlier Amber said she wants to leave right. And she said she wants to clean up her mess and pack accordingly. And Emily says, I'm sure you'll clean like you have this whole time you've been here, i.e. not at all. Leave me with ruined brand new carpeting and ruined rugs and a broken soul. And I mean, what did you expect, Emily? Maybe there's a lesson learned here about inviting basically a stranger into your home. Maybe don't do that. And of course, Amber, please don't act innocent in this. You've been awful to me too, which may be the case. Emily probably was not great to Amber either, but it's clear that all Amber had to do was apologize and actually admit what she did.
Please don't act innocent in this. You've been awful to me too. We both have. We've both also apologized to one another. Yes, it does keep happening, but can we figure out how to stop it? This is the closest, as I've said, Amber gets to admitting what she did. She won't admit it in and of itself. She won't admit it as, listen, I did this, I admit I did this, I put my hands up. She'll say, don't act like you're innocent. You've done stuff as well. And in saying you've been awful as well, she's admitting that she's been awful. But that's not the same as taking accountability, although I think it's a very clever manipulation tactic that narcissists will do to try and get you to think that they've taken accountability when they fucking haven't. But we're not going to fall for that in this house.
Amber will never really just say, I did something wrong. She will always distance herself or try to like lump the other person in with the accountability, right? We both have. We've both been terrible. So, accountability taken. And then Emily responds, I have had moments where I snap on you. A person can only take so much, Amberlynn. So now there is a possibility that Emily was just shitty, right? From what we've seen on camera, she seems pretty quiet and timid. But we don't know what she's actually like in real life, But I could also picture Emily not really doing much, Amber driving her nuts to the point where she snaps and screams at her, and then Amber going, what the hell? Why would you do this to me? Right? It's like the kid with his finger right next to you saying, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you. And when you finally yell at him, he's like, why would you do that? What the hell, man? And this is where we start the Rarity arc, right? I haven't been able to find Rarity all day. And it's kind of conspicuous, don't you think? A little bit of convenient timing that all this is going on. Amber has exhausted everything she can think of, even sort of kind of apologizing for something that might have happened. And if it did, she's sorry. So when none of that worked, all of a sudden, I haven't been able to find Rarity all day. And you're just now bringing that up? You know, and that's where it's suspicious. She says all day. And I know that there's been a lot of other conversation going on here, but you would think at some point throughout the day, she would have mentioned there's no Rarity here. Unless she let Rarity out right before this. So we'll get into some details here. And Rachel points out that Mr. Snowflake showed these screenshots or these texts right here. And she was always curious, Rachel was always curious, what happened in this 20-minute period here? Because Amber had been texting constantly, so something happened between these two, and she has those texts, so she's going to show those. And so this is where we pick up with the Mr. Snowflake stuff, right? And one of the biggest takeaways from the Mr. Snowflake video was this, where Emily said, I'm afraid to come home, to be honest. And now we know why. Because Amberlynn won't even admit what she did. And then, of course, I didn't go to the back porch. Why would you not go to the back porch? Like, what a stupid thing to say. Obviously, there's something fishy about that. Because she hasn't been able to find Rarity all day, she claims. And yet she just didn't go to the back porch. Why not? And why text that instead of just going to the back porch?
The fact that Rarity is missing and gone is then immediately followed by a second message which says, I need help finding her, which basically means, please come home. So Rarity is missing, please come home. She thinks that Rarity being missing will make Emily come home.
Yeah, that's sure what it sounds like. And then I didn't go to the back porch, which again is just sus. So here we get into the texts in between the 20-minute period there. Amber says, I'll even order you something to eat if you're hungry. I'm mentally exhausted, and I know you are too. I don't want war, I just want peace. It'll be okay. And Rachel makes another good point here.
This is her trying so hard to make amends. She can't bring herself to actually fucking apologise for what she's done, but she is able to identify that she wants peace, but she's not able to do the accountability taking that is required to actually manifest that peace.
That's it in a nutshell, right? Like I've said so many times in this, all of this could have been avoided if she could just take a little bit of accountability. Just imagine putting yourself through all this just because you can't just say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. And Emily says, I don't want to sleep by you all week, so what am I supposed to do? And Amber says, I'll sleep on the couch. Good luck with that. Or on the extra bed. You can have your bed. Oh, well, how gracious. You can have your bed. Yeah, it's her bed. Of course she can have her own bed. And of course, Amber starts getting into her flowery language again. And she says, I'm not here to cause you distress. I love you tremendously. And I wish you felt hopeful that we could fix this, but I understand. Do ya? Do you understand? I don't think you do. I really wanted to grow old with you, the way you looked at me. I wanted to see those eyes for the rest of my life. And Emily says, you don't love me. I love you so much that I feel sick to my stomach right now. Yeah, I'm sure you do. Because you are terrified that you're going to have to go home. And you're going to have to be alone. I don't think she really even knows what love is. She knows what obsession is, but not love. What I wish we were doing. In bed, laughing, eating dinner, feeling happy and at ease, and watching a show. Okay? Cool story, bro. You have no idea how much I miss you and regret everything. And again, Rarity is missing throughout all of this. She has not mentioned Rarity in any of this. So she goes on and on and on about how much she loves Emily and how she will sleep on the couch and order something to eat and loves her tremendously. And has not mentioned Rarity again. And Rarity has supposedly been missing all day at this point. So then it goes on and Amber says, can I prove to you that I love you? Let me prove it to you. Come home, go upstairs. I'll give you a melatonin. I'll fix the bed. I'll tuck you in. I'll kiss your forehead good night. I'll turn the lights off and I'll let you sleep alone so you can get a restful night's sleep. I want to love you. I can't help it. So think about what she's admitting there. She's basically saying, if I'm there, you're not going to get a restful night's sleep. You need me to be gone to get a restful night's sleep. I wonder why that is.
It got to the point where I started going into the other room just to sleep because she wouldn't stop arguing with me when I was trying to rest before a shift. That happened one time. And it's when everything hit the fan. And I followed you in there with my BPD meltdown, my tantrum. Yeah, I did.
And Emily continues to not have any of it. She says, if you didn't hurt me on purpose, why would you regret it? Get real. And she's responding to where Amber said, you have no idea how much I miss you and regret everything. Not regret what I did, but regret everything. And Emily says, I don't want you to touch me. That's pretty strong language. I don't want you to touch me. I think that text right there is probably the most compelling, not evidence, but sort of the most compelling thing that Emily has said so far that makes me think that it is as bad as she's claiming, or at least she thinks it is. And then, of course, Amber says, I regret anything I've done that hurt you. And that goes back to where she says, I don't remember it, but if it happened, then I'm sorry. Because by using that language, she can distance herself from it. Anything. Yes, I apologize for anything that's hurt you. So we're good now, right? And Rachel makes a good point because Amber says, OMG, Princess is out. And that was Emily's cat. And Rachel was saying, I think Amber was sort of toying with the idea of saying that to get Emily to come home, right? Like maybe Rarity wasn't enough. So I'll say Princess is out. And then I think she thought better of it and said, oh, she just went upstairs. I was confused. But again, no mention of Rarity at this point, who has been missing all day. And so, yeah, it sounds like she is throwing everything at the wall to see what will stick. Even Princess is out. And then, again, I think she changed her mind there. And she's sitting here stewing, right? She is sitting here thinking, what can I say? What can I do to change Emily's mind? There's got to be some sort of magic word or some sort of thing in this universe that I can do to change Emily's mind. So she says, Emily, can I ask you something? And Emily's like, what? Can I have another chance? And Emily says, no. That is my favorite part from all the texts that we saw in the Snowflake video. Can I ask you something? What? Can I have another chance? No. And then she says, so you want me to pack my bags and leave? Yes. And then Amber says, check Snap, please. And I'm sure she sent her a message saying, I love you tremendously. I want us to have a hug that we feel strongly. But then Emily says, I've been abused before and I was dumb to have stayed with her because look what it led to. Talking about Megan. And ended up in a dangerous situation. And Amber, I would never do that. I mean, maybe not that specifically.
In this screenshot here, you can see Amber say, yeah, this conversation is not going how I wanted it to go at all. Forget it. Take me home. I'm done. She had an agenda. The only reason she was apologizing was because she wanted something from this conversation. And that makes perfect sense because as we've seen this entire video, all of her apologies are vague and fake and they're empty. They don't say what she's actually sorry for. Her apologies are empty and manipulative. And when they don't achieve their end, she just kicks off again and changes her mind.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Anytime she's said, I'm sorry, it's been for things that happened. Or if they happened, then I'm sorry. Other than that, she has been denying or making excuses or saying that Emily dreamed it, you know? And these texts are from sometime after the Rarity incident. And Rachel mentions that she doesn't really know exactly when these are from. But Emily says, I get that what I did hurt you, but that did not give you the right to say those things about me. Amber says, oh, Lord, now I know how you really feel about me. You don't care or love me enough to stay loyal. You have wandering eyes and you lie. Now, Amber kept saying that there was betrayal. Betrayal, betrayal, betrayal.
Betrayal, 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 betrayal. Like, you go crazy.
But she never brings herself to say that Emily cheated. And she says, here you have wandering eyes and you lie. So I don't think Emily ever cheated. I think it was all the idea that she was looking at Tumblr, at some pretty weird, gross stuff, or just inappropriate stuff, you know, and maybe talking to other people online and talking to haters and stuff like that. Because if she cheated, I think Amber would just say she cheated, but she never did. In fact, at one point, somebody asked her point blank, did Emily cheat? And she said she betrayed me.
Did she cheat? So, I have boundaries in my relationship that she knows, um, and accepted. We both have boundaries. When you get into a relationship, you say those boundaries, what you accept and what you don't accept. What's loyal to you? What am I trying to say? What your definition of loyal is. Like, those things need to be shared and expressed. And she knew those things. That's all I got to say about that.
So I don't think there was actual cheating going on, but Amber took everything Emily did as such a huge betrayal because it's Amber, right? You shouldn't be looking at anybody else if you've got Amber in her mind. And then it just kind of goes on, and Amber just plays the victim the whole time. And Emily says, you're vindictive and spiteful. And this line right here, it says, it doesn't matter how I handled my pain, you created it. Which sounds a lot like what she said in her live streams, where she said, I was a monster, but you made me that way.
And I followed you in there with my BPD meltdown, my tantrum. I did. And I'm able to admit that. My pain turned me into a monster because of what you did.
And that, again, just shows that Amber feels justified doing whatever she wants to somebody if they hurt her feelings. Or if they say something she doesn't like, then whatever she does is fair game and justified.
And the thing is, and one of the main reasons I think this video did need to be made, is that this story corroborates and validates the story of Amber's other victims. We see these capital letters, we see this kicking off. Amber thinks that her behaviour is justifiable, and it's fucking not. And we can see, just from how Amber reacts here, even more so why Emily was so desperate to get this fully grown, abusive fucking toddler out of her house. All of the manipulation that we've seen in these messages is Amber trying to gaslight Emily and trying to get Emily to believe that she wasn't harmed by Amber when she was, and trying desperately to get Emily to let Amber stay in her house despite Emily clearly wanting Amber to leave.
But we know that following this conversation, Amber didn't leave. She didn't leave for ages. She stayed and stayed and stayed. Emily is a person who is clearly has the courage of her convictions. She wants Amber to go. She wants Amber out of her fucking house. But as we all know,
It was a lengthy stay that became lengthier because we loved being around each other, which then became lengthier once Rarity went missing.
And that may sort of corroborate the idea that Amber got rid of Rarity just to stay longer. The night that Rarity went missing, Emily was done. We could see it in the text. She was not putting up with Amber's shit and kept telling her, you need to go. You need to go. I'm tired of this. Go home. But then Rarity goes missing and she stayed for another month. So it could be argued that Amber kind of pulled it off by somehow making Rarity disappear. And then the last text that's shown, and Rachel makes a good point, that we don't know what Emily did here, but I kind of remind you that the only things that Amber ever said that were the betrayals were looking at Tumblr, at other women, and talking to haters, and I think that's it. Like, nothing too crazy, I wouldn't say. Like, yeah, it sucks, and she's a shitty girlfriend, but I don't think anything that Amber has mentioned so far would rise to the level of justifying this kind of response, where she says, I'm going to reveal everything. I'm not sure what there is to reveal other than, saying that Emily's a feeder, which I mean, come on. She watches reaction channels. She knows that that was known all along. But then she says, if you don't call me the second you wake up to speak about this, I'm literally going to ruin your life just like you ruined mine. I mean, that sounds pretty controlling. And we all know abuse isn't just physical. I've heard that somewhere. So yeah, this was a long video with a lot of details. And I'm so glad that Rachel took the time to talk to Emily, get the information, and then do all this. I mean, this, like I said, took a ton of work to get this video out. But yeah, this was a wild look into the mind of Amberlynn Reid when she thinks nobody's gonna see it, right? She didn't expect an audience to see how she really acts when she's talking to her significant other. And it's alarming. It's really concerning, the way she manipulates and gaslights. And we knew she couldn't take accountability, but we had no idea it was this bad. And I don't know that we necessarily learned a lot in this video, but we did have a lot of theories that were pretty much proven right, including the fact that the reason Amber stayed as long as she did was because of Rarity. And likely Amber did something to cause Rarity to leave so that she could stay longer. It doesn't take too much of a leap to get there when you read those texts, right? She is pulling out all the stops, her manipulations aren't working, and then all of a sudden, Rarity's been missing all day. And then she doesn't mention her again. She keeps talking about Emily and how much she loves her and stuff. But then I guess like the next day or the next couple of days, then she goes on YouTube and makes a video about it. And even after that, she barely mentioned her. So it's not that Amber cared that Rarity was gone, but it was a convenient excuse to stay. And like I said earlier, Amber just kind of pulled it off. You know, that was her plan, to stay longer, and it worked. And, you know, I don't know if I can blame Emily for that. I mean, I know she wanted Amber to go home, and it would be hard to say, go home, and if I find Rarity, I'll figure out a way to get her to you or something. And I think that was the point, right? Amber wanted to put Emily in an impossible spot so that she was forced to let her stay. Anyway, this whole thing was so fascinating, and I just saw that Rachel came out with another video with some extra information, so I will absolutely be doing that next. So I will see you in that one. I appreciate you guys so much. Take care.